It's Baggers from Geekple. So it feels weird just me being on my own, no Colin and that guys. But it's something I'm going to try, like a new solo Baggers trek, so to speak, where I will talk about my love of Star Trek, because Geekple has become a semi-Star Trek channel with all my top fives and all my posts and all my conspiracy theories and all my theories Picard that I got about, 2 out of 20,000, right? So I thought we'll start from the beginning and how it all began, how this guy became a total Star Trek nerd, a fanboy for life. And it all stems from my mum. My mum was a big Trekkie. She loved it. She loved all the original series, Next Generation. But her original favourite captain was Captain Pike, Jeffrey Hunter. Now, people will know Captain Pike really well. He was in, the Calvin Universe films. He was in... What's wrong, Jeff? You want to join the podcast? And he was in Disco Season 2. So, got an attention-seeking cat up there, So yeah, from Disco Season 2, then he got his own TV show, Strange New World, which is phenomenal. Season 1 and Season 2's dropping, I think it's June. But yeah, so Christopher Pike now is a big character. But back when I first saw Star Trek, I think I must have been about 6, 7, maybe 8. So this is early 90s, you're looking at probably 92, if that. I'm an old bastard, so time does not exist, But yeah, so I remember as a kid just sitting down watching TV with your parents as you do, and I can't remember if it was on VHS or if it was a rerun on BBC Two, but it was the original pilot of the original series, so not the one with Shatner in. This was Jeffrey Hunter as Pike, and he was different already from, like, as a kid, your superheroes and your heroes and stuff. They are, almost, besides Spider-Man, most would like, and Batman maybe, but they're mostly, like, look at Superman. He's just, like, super good, cheerful, hopeful. And even, like, you look at some of the Trek characters, you got, like, Captain Kirk, he was like a rogue, like a player, kind of, but he was confident in himself, he's confident in his skin. Picard, a force of nature, the way, the diplomacy, speeches here and there. Even Cisco was a bit, he had a bit of trauma to begin with because of, losing his wife, in the Battle of Wolf 359. But he was still a confident, tough as nails kind of person. Janeway as well. All of them, Archer, they was all, like, confident. There was this where, first episode, in the cage, we see Pike's, like, not a shell of his former self, but he's lost his confidence, he's lost people in an away team, he's better to just give it up, like, quit it, and, he sees the ship's doctor, aka the bartender, gives him a martini, and tries to settle his nerves and tries to just tell him, but like as Pike says, he just wants to go home, he was just thinking of, it's like depression, he was just depressed, he didn't know what he wanted to do for the rest of his life. He didn't think he could be a captain anymore, didn't have the faith in himself to have this crew. So by the end of the episode, he said he was going to be done and dusted. And that's where the episode begins, where, Talos 4, get the distress call, go down to the planet, you see some humans, and you see Vina. And to my mum, she loves this episode. If you've never seen it, I'll give you the cliff notes in a sec, but she said the heart of it was always a love story between a lost captain and a lost woman, and it's very true. It's a tragic story, as we know in future episodes, which again I'll give you the cliff notes in a sec, but the pilot resonated with me, it stayed with me, like even I was about 6 to 8, I can't remember how old I was, but I remember sitting down watching the bits, the aliens, the Telosians with the massive heads, they were scary. They were like, and you had the illusions that they can make real, like burning scene, because like Pike being a Bible guy, all the Sunday school, the true horror that he could see was the devil and the hound. But the idea that it's only in his head, but they can make him see anything, feel anything. And that's when the kicker, like they're in this alien zoo. So if you've never seen him, they're being down to this planet, get the distress call, find some humans to find out they're all an illusion. Then that's when they get kidnapped, they end up in this zoo. So the idea that they're strong telepaths as well, they can make you see anything, where the away team that's left go back up, Spock comes down, which again, we see a Spock that's smiling, which isn't the Spock we know from, future Trek. But the idea that they come down, they're using phaser cannons, and they don't know if they've dented the hole, they don't even know if the hill's there, they can't tell where Pike is, because the illusion, they could see anything, and they could be there for days, they could even be next to Pike and they're not there, they just don't know. So again, they're in this zoo, and this is when they find out they've lost. They're living in their own heads. They're lost. They've evolved. So they've lost human touch and all this stuff, and they need entertainment to keep their race going. But the problem is they've got a human female, but they need a human male. But now, because in this away team, you've got number one, and you've got Colt, I think her name was, and basically and Vina as well. So basically they're trying to find out which one's going to be the right mate for Pike, so then he could have kids to carry on this, because out of all the races they've probably got, the humans are the ones with the biggest imaginations and everything. So Pike not being Kirk, because if this was Kirk, we know how that ends. He uses, tries to use diplomacy, it doesn't work, so he uses bare fists. And in the end, it basically threatens, to kill him, to end everything. Which then the Telosians are a bit like, oh shit, okay, we didn't know. Because again, they don't know, they've never really met a human, they don't understand the concept of what they're doing is torture. He would rather die and be free than live and be captured for the rest of his life. But this is when the kicker, which my mum says is tragic love story, and you think as a kid, I don't know, okay, I see this bit, but they're about to beam off the planet. That's when we find out she is human, she was found on the planet, but again, if you have a jigsaw puzzle, you don't have the box. You don't know what the picture's going to look like, so you're going to try your best to put it back together. Which with the Telosians, they've never met a human before. They don't know which body parts go where the bones and stuff. So the idea that this beautiful Vina is actually hunchbacked, or they basically saved her, but they just didn't have a blueprint of how to put it back together. The idea that if she left the planet, she would live in constant pain. So she has to stay on the planet, which again, she's fell in love with Pike. Pike's got feelings for her, but again, he has to leave because it's his duty. So they leave, she goes back with the Telosians, but they give her an illusion of Pike, so she can live the rest of her days with that illusion, where Pike leaves the planet but different. He has that, I don't know, he's got that twinkle back in his eye, the twinkle he lost at the beginning, where he knows that it's going to be okay, but then, as we know, that was the end of the story. They didn't pick that pilot up, it wasn't canon for years. You had Kirk took over, and then you had the part two, the menagerie, which then we see a Pike, but not as we remember him. Again, not knowing how the story ends, when I first saw the cage, my mum knew up to the level of the story. So when I was a kid, I was always asking what happened to Pike, and then I watched Star Trek to see there was no Kirk. It was Kirk, but no Pike, and you're like, okay, maybe they're going to address it. Never did, and because me being an OCD little kid, was like, when's it coming? So my mum's like, be patient. So we watched these reruns, remember on BBC Two, and that's when we got to the two-parter. But then to see him in his wheelchair with the two lights, the face, you can imagine little kid me was like, what is this? He was like the captain, Jeffrey Hunter in the last time I've seen him. He was like young, strong, bit, suffering from, trauma and stuff, but he was still fighting for his morals and stuff like that. To then see him in this, wheelchair, like iron lung with wheels, horrifying. But again, as we know, the end of the story, Spock takes over the ship, takes him back to Talos 4, which now has a death sentence on if you ever go. And Pike gets his happy ending. They beam him down. He ends up with Vina. They use the footage from the cage where Vina's going with her illusion, where in this now repurpose. He's leaving with her. They're going to live their lives. They're both going to live illusions and basically not feel the pain and like living in an iron lung and a hunchback, which again ended bittersweet. And as a kid, I was like blown away by Pike and the idea, and that's what I think started. Just the idea of just heroes. I think I'd like my 3-dimensional characters. Like I love Kirk, Picard, Cisco. Cisco's another reason why he's my favourite captain. As a kid, it was called Kirk because again, he was brave. He was like, the no-win scenario. It was like everything he wanted to be because he just felt like a superhero in space. Picard was like the way I wished I was, more well-spoken, smart, used words more. And Cisco, now in later life, he's more three-dimensional. He's morally not great because if you think of the Moonlight one, you know what I mean. Can't get my fucking words out. But in that one, again, it's morally grey. He's willing to do bad things for the right outcome. But again, he's suffering. As I said, he's lost his wife and stuff like that. Where Pike was similar. Pike's suffering, but again, he hasn't changed who he was. And then when we see, jump into the future with the new actor, Mount, in, Disco, that one episode where he gets the time crystal and he sees his fate. And they add a new level to his character to possibly make him, depends how Strange New Worlds ends, but possibly could make him the best Star Trek captain of all time because he's willing to see that, freak out about it, because of course if you see your fate that you're going to live in this iron lung for the rest of your life, but choose to get the crystal because you're going to save countless other people, it is heroic, but it's heroic in more human way, Kirk, Spock, they did those kind of sacrifices, but with Spock, as a kid, Rafa Khan, which to fair get good views. This be the next one where I talk about my love for Rafa Khan, but again, his death wasn't final. Kirk's pretty much is final because of Generations, but then we got this Project Phoenix that was in Picard season 3, so you don't know what's going to happen. But the idea with Pike's more, not even probably the death bit, I know it sounds bad, but if you're dead, you're dead. Where with Pike's, his future isn't just death, it's to live a life of suffering in that iron lung. So the idea that he's just willing to sacrifice, a happier future for Starfleet and the universe itself, it speaks volumes of this Pike. And the way Strange New Worlds has now got technically 10 years between the cage and his iron lung situation, they could do anything. They could spin it again. I'd like to see how they end it after, because I don't want them to take away from him and Vina ending up together, because I thought that was a nice cat because they both get the happy ending. Bittersweet because they're both in reality suffering, but we'll see. I'm positive, Strange New Worlds is amazing, but it's carrying on something that my mum got me into, that I fell in love with, and which was the cage, Star Trek. And then from there started off my love for all Trek, all the films, the good and the bad, and the same the shows, the good episodes, the bad episodes, everything in between. So cheers, Mum, thank you for that, and thank you to everyone who's listening. To fair, it's because it's a solo one. I don't really have the guys that wrote me in, so when I babble, I babble. So we'll see how popular these are, see if it warrants, if I get enough comments, likes, see if it warrants a second episode or a third episode, or carry on. Because I don't know if you've seen on Instagram and YouTube, the Star Trek ones that I've planned themes are my love of, which again will be things I talk about, my favourite films, my favourite characters. There'll be one called the Role Models, which again I'll pick a character from Trek lore that has kept a lasting impression on my life. So it'd be like O'Brien, your Cisco's, your Rikers, your Kirks, your Pikes. And then we've got General Trek, so I'll probably revisit some old baggers top fives, or just look at General's Trek in general. And then I'm going to wait for it to hopefully be announced, but Star Trek Legacy, if that gets picked up, I will do a look back at Picard Season 3, and then look to the future of Legacy. And then if Legacy does get picked up, I'm hoping to do a weekly after episodes discussion. I was going to play about with it with Picard, but I couldn't feel if there was a need for it. But with Legacy, if it is taken up, I'll take that under the wing and then carry that on. But yeah, so let me know what you liked, what you didn't like. If you don't want another one, just let me know. And as always, guys, much love, peace out, and have a good day. And that sounds cheesy, but live long and prosper.